Hello and welcome. My name is James Hardy and I'm the Asia Pacific editor of IHS Jane's Defence Weekly. For today's briefing, I'm very pleased to welcome Rukmani Gupta, a senior analyst of Asia Pacific military capabilities at IHS. So first to the claimants. This map here by Ark Esri, one of our partners, shows the 6.5 claimants to the South China Sea islands listed on the slide here. Indonesia has an asterisk and is the half, as it were, because it doesn't actually claim any of the islands, but as Rukmani will clarify, it could be affected by Chinese maritime claims. As you can see here, the majority of islands and features in the South China Sea are in two distinct groups, the Paracels and the Spratlys. Now, the islands in dispute sit atop competing exclusive economic zones and China's infamous 9 line, which you can see in red here. Beijing's refusal to clarify what this line means, is it a territorial boundary or a claim to all land features inside it, or just a sphere of influence, is one of the key problems with the claim. Taiwan, or the Republic of China as is, which produced a map that established the 9 claim, recently clarified its interpretation of the line. President Ma Ying-jeou, who said that the 1947 map and the claim was limited to islands and the 3 to 12 nautical miles of their adjacent waters. He said, quote, "There are no other so-called claims to sea regions," end quote. Another complicating factor, and something that has really come to the fore this summer when China deployed an oil rig to Vietnam's EEZ, is the potential for hydrocarbon deposits in disputed areas of the South China Sea. So now what we'll do is we'll focus in on the two groups of islands that provide the most tangible evidence of the South China Sea dispute, starting off with the Paracels. Now, since establishing total control of the Paracels after a 1974 battle with Vietnam, China has really moved to reinforce this control via military and administrative means. The latter includes making Woody Island, the largest of the Paracels, the capital of Sansha Prefecture in 2012. And in this year, in June, a Xinhua news agency reported that a school was under construction on Woody Island as well. So what we're looking at here is really a move to make it less of a military installation and more kind of facts on the ground by having a civilian population, which of course complicates any invasion scenarios for any potential aggressor. What we can see here is China is also expanding Woody Island's geographical footprint. This image from April shows land reclamation between Woody and Rocky Islands. You can see between what used to be a small causeway and a promontory up on the north side, and the expansion of the harbour on the west side. Now, the interesting thing about there is that China has actually been removing physical features which it created earlier, and obviously we can assume that it's not doing these to diminish its capabilities, it's to expand them quite significantly. The images on the left-hand side were provided by the Philippine Coast Guard and Maritime Forces. They've taken images taken from an aircraft. We corroborated them using a satellite imagery analysis, which is the main image you can see. So if we look at 2012, there's a very small structure. It's one of the concrete platforms I mentioned earlier, which has been put there by China. February 2013, it's still there, it's the same structure. February 2014, quite a lot has changed on the ground there. Well, there wasn't ground there before, and now there is. Now, the 11th of March 2014, we can see even more, and of course, you can see in this main image, we can see how they were doing it using the dredger. We can see at the top, and it is basically creating spoil that is, in itself making land. This is how it appeared by August 14th this year. A reinforced seawall has been created and piers for roll-on, roll-off ships. So a real change on the ground. There's enough fuel storage. There's some barracks. Looks like there are possible foundation work for bigger structures. So as you can see, major changes on the ground. They've also done a lot of dredging if you look to the north west of the island, the new island, to actually give them access for ships. This map, released by the US State Department, illustrates US policymakers' perceptions of Chinese perceptions of its maritime sphere. What it shows is that Washington understands the risk that China may attempt to turn the South China Sea, in the words of Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, into, quote, Lake Beijing.
In this section of the webinar, I will focus on 5 of the 6 other claimants in the South China Sea dispute. all of which are involved in the maritime or territorial disputes to varying degrees. Like China, Vietnam has also been upgrading the facilities and features under its control. This is most apparent in these images of Southwest Keys in the Strathleys. Comparing the image from 2005 to the larger image from 2013, it is clear that significant construction activity has been undertaken. And since 2011, new defensive positions and harbor buildings have also been constructed. In addition to bolstering defenses on disputed islands, Vietnam has made significant investments to shore up its naval capabilities in recent years. As far as the Navy is concerned, the most important of these capabilities is represented by the acquisition of improved Kilo-class submarines from Russia. A deal for 6 boats was signed in 2009. Earlier this year, 2 of these were commissioned. A third is undergoing sea trials currently, and a fourth is scheduled to be commissioned also by the end of the year. In addition to procurement of new naval assets, Vietnam is also upgrading its naval bases. So since 2011, the Vietnamese Navy has been upgrading its naval port at Cam Ranh Bay with 2 new piers being constructed. This is the site of the new Kilo-class submarines. Now, the proximity of Vietnamese assets to disputed territories can be assumed to be a geographical advantage in the event of a serious conflict over the disputed territories. Most recently, on 2nd October, the U.S. Department of State has announced that the U.S. has eased its ban on military sales to Vietnam, allowing Vietnam to procure maritime security-related defense articles. All of these developments signal the beginning of a more robust military relationship between these 2 countries.